Today we examine the concept of off-cycle elections in Nigeria. And fresh from these off-cycle elections in Imo, Bayelsa and Kogi states, how have the people performed? Has the election umpire done its best job? And how has the country fared? Hello and welcome. It's another Tuesday to talk politics right here on Channels Television, live from our Abuja studios. This is Political Paradigm. I am Kayla Megwa. Off-cycle elections are largely the product of a failed electoral process, one fraught with so many inconsistencies that the choice for a leader had to be pushed to a later date. We've heard so many criticisms of off-cycle elections, most notably from former President Goodluck Jonathan, who's appealing to the National Assembly to do all it takes to block off-cycle elections in Nigeria, as it is not the best practice. My guest on the program is Mr. Hamzat Lawal, an activist and founder of Connected Development, or CODE, as we fondly call them. And using their election monitoring tool, Uzabe, CODE monitored the elections through thousands of volunteer observers, shedding light on both positive efforts and concerns. Mr. Hamzat, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having me, Kayla.
So let's talk a bit about the election process. Of course, you observed the elections in Kogi. This is one of those elections where we happen not to be in the same city because I wasn't aware while you were in Kogi.
Yes.
So let's talk a bit about what you observed, on the heels of a lot of the criticisms that have come, since the process has ended. What were some of the things that you noted in this particular election that are cause for concern for both the umpire and Nigerian people?
I think first, so people will always find someone to blame, and the easiest target is INEC. Kayla, Connected Development deployed UZABI observers. It's important to mention that we have 20,000 people on our database that are trained electoral observers. So we deploy them a week before the election, because for us, we do pre-election observation, on election day observation, and post-election observation. And using a real-time situation tool, a technology tool that is map-based. So we geolocate in every location so that people can get real-time information. But most importantly, we can escalate it to security agencies and INEC to respond. 48 hours before the elections, I traveled from Abuja to Kogi. And in Kogi, we set up our situation room hub, where we're getting report from Imo, Bayelsa, and in Kogi State. I was received by the electoral umpire, the state resident electoral commissioner. Together with him, director of DSS, we had the DCP of police that was deployed to the state, that's Habu. We went to the Central Bank of Nigeria. They opened the vault in our presence, and we jointly inspected the sensitive materials. It was then sorted into 21 local governments and then transported with heavily armed security personnel to this 21 local governments. Around 9 p.m., I also sent observers to different rack centers to go and verify that, one, these sensitive and non-sensitive materials are now at the rack centers, and that, two, they have security personnel and also INEC ad hoc staff on ground so that they can then transport them closer, to various polling units. I myself went around 11 p.m. I stayed on the field from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. in the morning before I went back to my hotel. And I can verify authentically that we saw security personnel jointly. So we saw civil defense, police, and in some cases we saw army mounting roadblock and checkpoints. I even interacted with the INEC officer in charge of all the other ad hoc staff. And for me, I asked if there was any issue and if they had all their materials in place, and they confirmed it. I left them there, and also it's important to commend the core members that were deployed for these elections. So around 7 a.m. in the morning, I mobilized and moved on the field. So I went to different local government and different polling units. Around 7:30, I stationed in Opogoro Denku ward, where you have about 8 polling units. So I got that around 7:40, we saw the buses bringing both sensitive and non-sensitive material and INEC ad hoc staff. Around 7:45, 7:50, they finished setting up. By 8 a.m., polling started. I can also confirm that they use beavers in most of the polling units that we visited and where we had observers, they used beavers for accreditation and authentication of voters. I can also confirm that the beavers function optimally. It's only about 2 or 3 cases, and they were able to send an IT technician who went to resolve the issue. Now, I can confirm that we had high number of turnout in Kogi, mostly women, older people, people with disability, which were given priority voting. So pregnant women, older people, people with disability were given priority voting in Kogi State. In Bayelsa State, it's important to commend INEC, particularly in Bayelsa State, because they sent in sensitive and non-sensitive material to local governments 24 hours even ahead of time, because we know that some of the local governments are in riverine areas. And so we commend them for that effort. In Imo State also, we saw heavy security, and sensitive and non-sensitive material got to RAC centers, and they opened polling on time. But the sad part with Imo and in Bayelsa was there was voter apathy. We didn't see a lot of people come out to cast their ballot in this state. But
so you're speaking basically from, your observers on the ground.
yes.
Because in the local government area that I covered, voting didn't start till past 10 at Ikeduru.
That's in Imo State.
Yes, in Imo State.
There's even a confirmed report around 2 p.m. where we got that materials have not gotten to a particular polling unit, and which we escalated
to
INEC.
We saw situations in Imo State, at least I can say that one, where we saw that voting didn't start early in many areas. You just mentioned voter apathy. Yeah. And in Imo State, that's something that, really was interesting to watch. And I think the education on voter apathy, people need to understand, if you are trying to secure your election, you don't secure your election by not voting. But we'll get to that conversation in a bit. I want to be able to talk about areas of concern. Because before the election, like you said, you do a map out of, what the issues could possibly be, So based on the, the mapping out that was done before the election and what you saw on ground, what would you say is the comparison with the things you expected? Did they happen?
No, they didn't. It was sad news to mischief makers and people who wanted...
Oh, you expected more mischief?
So, Kayla, before the elections, there was tension, there was apprehension. The political actors heated the polity. Literally everywhere in this state was a flashpoint for violence. And it was highlighted in various civil society reports, including that of the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room. It was a place of concern, Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa. And I think this was what informed the meeting that we had, and also the meeting that the INEC chairman had with the National Security Advisor and the IG of Police, who now made commitment that they were going to deploy more men, across this state. And we saw that deployment, where they were heavily armed personnel across the state, guaranteeing the safety of lives and property. So that was our major concern, the security and that tension. And I think that the lessons we need to learn from this is, election is a democratic process. It's not a do-or-die affair. And I think this is a message to political actors. You don't have to continue to hit the polity. Kayla, there was a lot of hate speech. There was a lot of misinformation and disinformation, particularly from some of the candidates and their political party. And to them, there were even threats. We saw threats. Even pre-election, people died. Pre-election campaign season. So, but on election day and in this election, and that's why I say mischief makers were disappointed. They thought that, some places in this state will go up in flames. But you see, most of the reports, and up till now, because usually when results are trickling down and when winners have been announced, that's when you see a lot of violence being unleashed. Kogi is peaceful. Imo is relatively peaceful right now. Yes, we know in Bayelsa there's some pockets of issues in Basa local government, in which we have escalated to security agency, and even INEC have added their voice to it that they need to get more security personnel to guarantee safety of lives and property. So those were most of the concerns and issues were around security, safety of life and property, and ensuring that people can go out and exercise their civic duty.
I mean, it was a little shocking, really, to talk to people, before the elections. We decided to go around Owerri, at least before I went to Ikeduru, to just find out what the feeling is. Are you going to come out to vote? There were people who spoke to us. I said, oh, I'm going to. Of course I will. We even saw a man that said, I'm not afraid of anyone. I am going to vote. But there were many people who told us, oh, please don't put my face on TV. I don't want anyone to know who I am. It brought to my mind the fact that this is I mean, democracy in itself, where it's a celebration of, elections are a celebration of democracy. It's like our anniversary for Democrats, It's supposed to be that, but it's turned into this theater of war. Is there a way to change this as opposed to militarizing our elections? Because that's what it looks like, at least for where the police were everywhere in Imo State. You couldn't move 10 centimeters without seeing, the police. As opposed to deploying so many security operatives to ensure that there's a peaceful conduct of elections, is there something else that can be done for people to start to understand that people rule is supposed to be a celebration, not war?
You see, Kayla, I like that you started with the feelers you got on the field. And this is also reconfirming our agitation around the shrinking civic space. A lot of people think we're living in a bubble. We're saying the civic space is rapidly shrinking. Imagine people in a democratic state, they're not, they don't feel comfortable expressing themselves freely on camera. And then you wonder what kind of democracy we're practicing, So I hope that as civil society, we can come together and see how we can roll back on this shrinking civic space. So we don't say we're a democratic country and yet people cannot express themselves or even exercise their right. Now, Kayla, so when you look at how people fared generally, there was issue around vote buying and vote selling. Sadly, Kayla, sadly in Bayelsa, it started with 5,000. It went to 10,000. By midday, it was 15,000 per vote. And as at just a few hours after midday, it went to 30,000. Kayla, we had evidence, we had videos, we had pictures of agents of some political parties sorting and counting money. We had videos of even Electoral jubilating that the vote is now as high as 15,000 naira. So it was more about the transaction rather than people exercising their free will to decide who become their leader. Yes, elections are, is part of the democratic process and is a celebration to exercising people's rights. But sadly, Kayla, everyone was ready for this election. And when I say everyone, civil society was ready. INEC was ready and prepared, taking feedback and criticism from 2023 general elections. They were very ready. In short, their ad hoc staffs they were trained and they understood their role and their job. Security was ready because of the reports of intended violence. They were ready. They deployed jointly Department of State Service, police, civil defense, army, name it, even NDLEA. They were on ground. They were ready. The politicians were not. The political actors were not ready. Rather, we said we've made progress with the 2022 Electoral Act. It was more like we're making progress, we're bringing innovation. The political actors are circumventing us. That's exactly what happened in some of the states.
Is it possible that they could do that because of the poverty in their land? It's possible to circumvent a process if you hone in on what the loopholes are in that society. Good example. While you're talking about, we need the place to be secure, INEC has to get its materials ready, we have to deploy, this has to be done. While all of that is going on, the politician looks and says, okay, I can't circumvent things from these sides. Where is the loophole? The people. The people are hungry. So I can either muscle them not to come out to vote, or I can buy their votes. Which brings me to what the issue is here. Are we being idealistic if we say we're doing democracy in this country, where people do not even want to hear you when you talk about exercising franchise and the importance? I remember trying to talk about, this was something we learned in Demons, Kratos, this is people rule, and you're supposed, this is your chance. You have a chance. You're off cycle. We'll get to that conversation about off cycle shortly. But you were off cycle. You can learn from the mistakes of the ones that were done in February. You have a rare opportunity. They didn't care. A lot of people were just interested in money. How do you have free and fair elections where people actually see it as a franchise and a celebration of democracy when there's so much poverty in the land?
Kayla, I think first we need to have an honest conversation as a country and as a people. What kind of democracy do we want to practice? And maybe also define our own methodology of democracy. Because if we go by the books, and the definition of democracy, you and I would disagree on what we are currently practicing. Mm-hmm. That being said, what are our moral values and standing? I don't think it's poverty, Kayla. Maybe I might be wrong, or maybe I'm naive. But I work at the grassroots, Kayla. I've interacted with families and households that cannot afford 500 naira daily. But there's some of these families and households that have strong values. What is the value of 15,000? Or let's even go to Imo, where vote buying and vote selling was between 1,000 to 5,000. Yes, some people sold their vote for as low as 1,000. What is the value of 1,000? What can 1,000 do to you? Okay, if the politicians, the usual slogan is pot of soup, how many days would a pot of soup last you? Okay, if you cook a pot of soup, do you have fufu or you have gari to eat with your pot of soup? So I don't think it has to do with poverty. I think it has to do with the mindset and the values that we have. And I think this is where we need to spread behavioral change. How can we use behavioral change? Because other countries that have progressed over the years or decades brought about behavioral change of their citizens, their identity, their values. What are we proud about as Nigerians? Because what we're seeing is the breakdown of values, not even in the political space. Because before we even talk about political society, first is the household, the husband and wife in the house, before it comes to the family, and then larger society. In larger society, you talk about media society, civil society, private sector, then political society. It is broken. The fundamental, the foundation from the house is broken. That's why people can collect peanuts, thinking that things will get better. We do follow the money, Kayla. Why do we have abandoned projects? Why do we have inflation of contracts? Why do we have all of these gaps and loopholes when it comes to contracting and procurement? Because these people are cash cow. They bring their Ghana must go. To them, it's an economic boom for them. They bring money, cash, by the way, during election. The first thing they want to do is recuperate that money. You think the money bags will just come and invest and get you to sell your votes and then they're happy? No! While you jubilate, they look at the budget, which is the Bible and Quran of the country in terms of development. And then they put in money. It passes through legislation, it gets signed, and then they move this money through contracts and through procurement. And that's why you would hear trillions, because now in Nigeria we're talking trillions. But when you go on the ground, we're still experiencing maternal mortality. So again, things would not change overnight if we ourselves do not change. And it starts with the foundation, which are the values. So I would never give up hope. And I believe, you that are listening at home and, will not give up hope. But we need to have very serious conversation as a people and as a country and agree that what are our values collectively. And we identify with those values so that nobody bend processes just to get their way. Because if people continue to get their way, then Nigeria would remain stagnant. And each and every one of us is identified with as Nigerians. Nobody in the global community, nobody care what religion or what community you're from, but they care about the country and the identity you represent. And for us, it is Nigeria. So we must fix it. But first, we start with our values. And to start, we must have those conversations and inculcate behavioral change.
The only alternative I see, apart from that conversation, and being honest with ourselves about where we've gone wrong, is that underdevelopment will get to a stage where you would have no choice as a person than to demand good leadership.
Exactly, because it starts with leadership.
Yes.
But then
it has to get there. If the people,
but then the recruitment process.
If people are not ready, to look at the repercussions of selling your vote
and the effect it will have on
you, then maybe development will be so bad. We might get to zero level development when you can't walk on the streets anymore, or you're unable to buy anything. Forget about 1,000 naira. You won't be able to buy anything at all. Maybe by the time there's a breakdown of everything.
Look at the case of Venezuela.
Maybe you would have to wake up as a person.
People are queuing now for sugar. So yes, it has to start.
Yeah, maybe if you started queuing for maybe we don't take so much sugar. Gary?
Bread.
If we start queuing for Gary, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. And the leadership recruitment process, we need to also have a conversation about it. So today the Constitution does not allow for independent candidacy. So you have to run through a political party. And it starts with, it's always about the money first. Expression of interest, party nomination, millions of naira. Then you run campaigns. You use your money. Or you go get a godfather or a sponsor. You do all of this. And then on election day proper, then you have a budget to sort people and also to buy votes. And then you expect that things will change and your road to become good, or you're going to get railway, or we're going to get clean potable drinking water, or hospitals will be fixed. No, it would not. So Kayla, I hope that this would inspire some level of conversation that will be honest and say, as we go into 2027, what are the electoral reform that are pertinent? How can we approach the National Assembly? I call them first because they are center to all of this. Because we want to amend the 2022 Electoral Act. What kind of amendment do we need? What kind of innovation has to come in place? That is clear and specific without ambiguity. We approach the National Assembly, right? Because that's where we as constituents have our representative. Then it goes to the 36 state houses of assembly. You need 2/3 majority. And then it comes back to the National Assembly. It's harmonized and we seek presidential assent. So this is a lot of work, but it must start now. Because yes, we have a window of about 3 years plus. But it has to start now. Because again, when the law is passed, we have to also do sensitization. We have to break it down. We have to simplify it. We have to train key election observers, security agencies. INEC would have to train their staff, ad hoc staff, recruit them. So it's a long value chain. And time is not on our side. We might think 2027 is very long. People are already thinking about 2031. Oh yes, that's how the politicians, that's how they reason. They think about election cycle.
Speaking of cycles, let's get into that conversation. We heard former President Goodluck Jonathan talk about off-cycle elections being not the best practice, asking the National Assembly to do what they can to bring those elections back on cycle, so to speak. And he expressed fears. If we continue the way we're going, presidential elections could go off-cycle as well. What are your thoughts on the whole idea about off-cycle elections? Because it's obviously something that is a product of a failure. It's not normal, all right? So some things have gone wrong. We have had no choice but to drag things up to where, okay, well, we have to find a different date to get... How can we bring it? Is it possible? Is it possible to bring these elections back on cycle? Is it possible?
Realistically speaking, we have two options. The first option is that we have elections and the date of election is fixed. So even if the sitting governors would not have to hand over power, but the elections for the next incumbent happens. That's one. Or we continue like this. See, realistically speaking, it's impossible.
Impossible?
It is. Because if this would happen, say we now have a unified election timetable, it means we have to approach the National Assembly. They have to amend some section of the Constitution. This would take time, effort, and commitment from political actors that are elected. Kayla, yes, it's a good innovation. It's good practice, but it's impossible. There's still ongoing litigation from 2023 general elections. Some people are hopeful that the election will be upturned, and then there would be by-elections that will bring them into office. So are you saying that, people would now say, because they're patriots, then they only spend 2 years in office rather than 4, that is constitutionally guaranteed? So you see, it's practically impossible.
But they should.
Kayla, if you are duly elected, do you want to spend your 4-year term, or because you're patriotic? This is being realistic here. If you have 4 years window, then you want to sacrifice 2 years. How would you bring those, or how would you meet those promises you've made to the people who have elected you into office? So it is great to have that conversation, but it's practically impossible.
Off-cycle elections are spreading. We're at 8 states now.
Yes.
So we have Anambra, Bayelsa, Kogi, Edo, Ondo, Ekiti, Osun, and Imo. The concept of off-cycle elections is actually spreading in the country.
There's a positive side of it and the negative side.
Tell me about these positives.
Now, on the positive side, police alone could deploy 40,000 men in Kogi because it's an off-cycle election. If it was general election, you cannot have that much manpower in a particular state. The joint security agencies could ensure that they're on ground to foretell any form of violence or intimidation of voters because it's an off-cycle election. If it was general election, we would always get report that they're overstretched and they cannot cover every area. That's one positive side of this off-cycle election. Now, the negative side is, and the reality is, when we don't follow electoral laws and process, we will continue to have off-cycle election. Why? The judge or the judiciary will decide the fate. So rather than the Tom deciding who becomes our leader, it will now be left for the bench to decide. And that's why we have 8 states. And we might even have much more as we progress in our very young and emerging democracy. So again, we can look at it from that positive side or negative side. A lot of people have also argued that we should take away the judicial process. If you take it away, is it the AK-47 process you want to bring? Because if people cannot address their grievance using the instrument of judiciary, then they would now use the instrument, the non-state instrument, which is AK-47. So there's that debate that, judges are not supposed to decide. Then who decides? I would also, and I think this is an opportunity to say, the politicians should not interfere. The electoral process, yes, there is a political angle, and it ends after the party primaries. Because internal party democracy first come into play, who emerge as the flag bearer of the party. Afterwards, it is now the general, and the general election does not have to do with politics. It is an electoral process with the guideline clearly stated. So if you now, as politicians, if you come and interfere with the process, that is why people would go and seek redress in court. The honorable thing to do when one loses and know the process is free, fair, and credible is to accept defeat and congratulate the winner. But it's been a while we enjoying that kind of democracy in Nigeria. I think nationally speaking, it was President Goodluck Jonathan that they said, his blood is his ambition is not worth any blood. And then he succeeded and congratulated the winner. So I think we need more Democrats, more patriotic politicians who would not interfere with democratically electoral processes. Allow it to run. If you have confidence in yourself that, one, you're popular, two, you've campaigned, and your messages resonate with the people who you want to represent. Mind you, Kayla, what are we even talking about? Politics itself, it's about service. Because you're coming out to serve the collective interest of your people or the country that you're passionate about. It means you're coming to serve. So why are you using so much money to want to use to serve? Ideally, if you're coming to serve, it shouldn't be about do or die. You should not be desperate to occupy public office. And I think this is where we need to also debate. Are we going to continue making public office juicy, where people are not accountable, where people are so powerful, they have immunity, and they seem like they're above the law? Because the rule of law must always take precedent. If you don't have rule of law, then anarchy would come into play. So again, there's so many conversations we have to have as a people, and it must be honest, open, and people must learn to accept this, and then we can work together. So it's not about party or B, it's about our country, Nigeria.
So I want to talk about these choices that have been made in Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa. Did the people choose, in your view?
Elections have been held. And you see, that's why Uzabe, we don't focus on the result. Because there will always be controversy around the result. Everybody who is aggrieved will go to court and say, I'm supposed to be declared winner. Look at the outcome of the 2020. Everybody said they won the election. Literally every candidate said they should be declared winner, that they won. So for us, we don't focus on the result, we focus on the process. Because if the process is free, fair, credible, and transparent, then it means nobody will question the result. So for us, it is the process, and it's informed by two legal and regulatory framework. The 2022 Electoral Act that we have now, and the INEX guideline. These are the instruments we use and look at the process that informed the result. In every election, someone will be declared a winner.
So did the people choose, in your view?
What I can tell you is people came out to exercise their right to vote. In Kogi State, we saw massive voter turnout. In Imo and Bayelsa, there were voter apathy. So, a lot of, in short, some voting booths, you only had 1 or even 9 people who came to vote. And when you count registered voters, 300, 400, but you only have, few people who come out to vote. So I would say that, yes, people who came out determined the outcome with their vote.
So let's talk a bit about voter apathy. Because like I said earlier, I think that's a conversation that I think Nigerians need to understand. Because when you talk to people who say, I'm not coming out to vote, well, why? Oh, I didn't trust the process the last time. And the solution is not to come out. So this is protesting. You're protesting against the process by staying home, forgetting that a leader is going to emerge whether you came out to vote or not, and that person would determine your future as well. Let's have that conversation so we can educate people on voter apathy and why you should come out to vote despite all the things stopping you, your anger with the last elections or the insecurity in the place. Why is it important for Nigerians to shun voter apathy? 2
things, Kayla. So you're aggrieved and you think not voting means that you're not voting means that, oh, you're feeling cool about yourself. No. The decision that will be made by the few would affect you. In short, it will affect you first than those people that made the decision. So again, when I hear people say, oh, because of this or X, Y, Z, to be fair, we must commend INEC. We've seen improvement. We've made progress with this off-cycle election. Secondly, Kayla, there is that debate about the register, the INEC register. Because again, when you debate voter apathy or the percentage of turnout, does the register truly reflect the reality of today? We've been doing continual voter registration, but we've not audited the register. We've not cleaned it up. So it means, and as a data wonk, let's say we take since 2011 up to date, 10% of people in the register probably have died. 10% have either relocated outside the country or they've moved from their primary place. 5% maybe have lost their permanent voter's card. So those are registered because people can challenge the whole, low voter turnout. They'll say, oh no, we've not audited the register, we've not cleaned it up. We just say, we have over 93 million or 94 million registered voters. But does it truly reflect the reality of today? So we can continue to debate this when we talk about voter apathy. Because maybe these people that came out are the true reflection of the current register. Yes, we can also debate that, for instance, in Imo, over 2 million people have collected their PVC. In Kogi, over 1.8 million. In Bayelsa, over 1.67 million. But we're talking about since, not now. So again, we need to critically look at this register, audit this register and clean it up so that we can then know how many people are truly registered and have their permanent voter's card. And then we can do advocacy and know which demography we need to encourage to come out to get registered and get their PVC. Because if we don't do it, then it will just be as if we were still walking around the surface and not going deep down. But I think it's also critical and important. People who have apathy and who are aggrieved, to change a system, you must continue to engage that system. You must continue to test the instrument of the law. You must continue to engage. You must protest using your permanent voter's card and the power of your thumb. You see, it is only the ballot that guarantee equity. No matter how powerful you are in this country, you're only entitled to one vote. So it means that every vote actually counts. Maybe that's your vote that you choose not to cast is the determinant vote. And then what happened? We get the wrong people into office because you choose not to vote. Some people argue that my vote doesn't count. It does count. The rig elections, if it doesn't count, politicians will not be buying a vote for 15,000 naira. Why do you think they're now making it transactional? Because it counts, because of the innovation of INEC. The introduction of BVAS was a game changer. And then also IREV, seeing results on the IREV portal. It's a game. These are new innovation that is showing politicians that it is very hard to rig an election.
I think we should restate that. I didn't think about it. If votes didn't count,
why are you buying
why
the
are
vote?
you buying
Exactly. So if vote does not count, why are you offering 15,000 naira? Why are you offering 5,000? Why are you offering rapa, gari, rice? Vote do count. So I think that this is just a theory.
Or is it possible that they give those so that people can come out?
Kayla, this is a theory, to lead propaganda so that people will stay at home and say, oh, by the way, my vote does not count. If it doesn't count, why are politicians offering you money for your vote? Why? I think that we need to understand that INEC have actually put in place mechanism with beavers. Beavers is a... Okay, let's even look at statistically how many House of Assembly, House of Rep member returned. How many governors, sitting governors, lost election? Who wanted to come and retire in the Senate? Sitting governor, incumbent, lost election because of beavers. So come on, every single vote counts. Now, as we speak, we just need to build on what we have and strengthen the electoral process and ensure that INEC truly remain independent. And speaking about INEC's independence, the people that are recruited as state resident electoral commissioners, national commissioners, must be neutral. They must, because that's an institution that holds trust.
I mean, I've heard civil society organizations talk about this quite a bit. The fact that INEC is trying, they said, actually, the theory is that there is an orchestrated plot to overrun INEC. There's a plan to ensure that recs are politically aligned, and INEC now becomes this cesspool of political players who would play games, and then whoever is smartest wins, and then the independence of the institution in itself will be rubbished, and people just not have faith in the process anymore. And then, of course, we heard these arguments at the time when these recs were being picked by President Tinubu, and of course you were among the people who were upset about the fact that some recs were card-carrying members of political parties. Is this something that can actually be sorted out? I'll give you the argument I gave against this. I said, if the president is the one picking recs, how do you expect the recs to be non-partisan, seeing as the person picking them is a politician? You didn't pick the recs from inside of INEC. Most of them are politically appointed by the president. So if the president, who is a politician, has picked you to be a resident electoral commissioner for a state, it is difficult for you to tell that person not to be politically aligned. Don't you think so?
You see, this is where our morals and also our commitment to Nigeria comes into play. Yes, Mr. President has the constitutional power to nominate, while the Senate would screen before this person occupies the office. Because again, the principle of check and balance, because the Senate, without the National Assembly, this would not be a democracy. They're the ones who ensure. And that's why when you read history, usually when military come and try to interfere, they first close the National Assembly. They even leave the judiciary, but they close up because they know that that is the institution that guarantees democracy. Now, yes, the president has the power. He can nominate, and then the Senate would screen. And I think that as a people, if we have moral standing and we put our country before anything else, then we would think about what would strengthen institutions. Kayla, it is wrong morally. It is wrong to put a position that is meant to be neutral, that holds trust, that guarantees credibility of a process, and then appoint cronies, party men. There are other appointive positions if you want to compensate, but do not play with the integrity, the independence of the National Electoral Commission. No, it is wrong. It sends a signal that the country does not need. Because what it does is, it now breeds distrust. And it will spill and might lead to anarchy. So again, it is important that our political class and political elite understand that you cannot play politics with everything. One simple example, we played politics with security. That is why we have this level of insecurity. There are things you don't play politics with. Kayla, would you fly in an aeroplane if the pilot did not study how to fly a plane? Or would you lay on a bed, an operation bed, if the person who wants to come and work on you is not a surgeon? So why do we want to now appoint people to institutions that guarantees legitimacy, independence, and fairness?
Well, Hamza, you see, my point is, if we're trying to talk about the legitimacy and the fairness of an institution, are we not setting up the groundwork for it to be compromised if the president, who is a politician, is picking people who are supposed to be non-political?
Kayla, everyone is a politician, to be fair, because in my studies in school, we were taught that every human is a political animal. But you see, President Tinubu is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, not the president of a few or a region or a group. And it is clear that the interest of the state supersedes any other interest. So even if they're thinking about the next election, there are institutions. I understand your argument. And again, the signal you're sending is, okay, let's all be politicians. And then the winners carry everything and then circumvent. That's why the rule of law must always take precedence. And there are institutions we do not joke with, except we want to now see or experience what is currently going on within security. You don't play politics with security. You don't play politics.
So shouldn't the first step in stopping this political play with INEC, shouldn't the first step be that the president should not be appointing recs? Don't you think so?
But the president is meant to be checked by the powers.
By the National Assembly.
To the National Assembly, particularly the Senate.
Why not remove this politician, Mr. President? Why not we remove this politician from the process? Why not decide that the recs come up the ranks from INEC? Because the fact that this person was appointed by the president, as long as the National Assembly has okayed this person's appointment, who does he answer to? He does not answer to the INEC chairman. He answers to the president.
That is why we say the people who are supposed to occupy this office must be neutral. I agree with you. In this instance, he would be loyal to the president. He would be submissive to the president, which is wrong, because it takes away that guarantee that when you put the electoral process in play, this person would not interfere with it. Because ideally, you're not supposed to interfere with it. So again, I think when we approach the 10th National Assembly as media, as civil society, and the general society at large, we must amend how do we recruit these people to INEC. We must amend those laws or those instruments in the law so that even if Mr. President will still have power to nominate, it must be clearly stated without ambiguity, the kind of people. And if you don't meet that criteria, the National Assembly should kick out and reject this kind of nominee. I think in this instance, the National Assembly failed us. And I think also, this screening should not have gone to plenary. It should have gone to the committee that oversees INEC. Why did it go to plenary? And they just have the ayes giving an okay. Why didn't it go to committee? The CBN screening, for instance, went to the committee that is saddled with the responsibility to oversight CBN. So why can't we have nominees from some of these government MDs? Let them go to the committee and have a solid background check, also debate around, their background and the role and innovation they'll bring to this office.
This is going to be the first off-cycle elections. I want to go back there. This is going to be the first off-cycle election. Well, the first election, really, under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has styled himself to be a Democrat. In your view, as someone who observed this election and observed even the election that brought President Tinubu into office, did this election reflect his legacy as a Democrat?
Now, to be fair, we didn't see any form of interference. The president, as we speak, is not in the country. He's saddled with the responsibility of leading Nigeria and attracting foreign investment and also talking to foreign partners. So he is not even worried about these elections within the country. And we saw the commitment of the IG of Police and the National Security Advisor. And I would say that, yes, I know these men are answerable to the president. This actually depicts his body language and his commitment to free, fair, and credible elections. And we don't see like that federal might interfering in this process on the ground and on the field.
So let's talk finally, about our electoral process in Nigeria and our democracy. You did point on a few things that made me squint a little bit, where you said we have to define what our democracy is. What do you mean by that? Because the last person I heard say that was Paul Kagame. And his democracy in Rwanda is not considered a democracy by the West. Are you saying that we have to rejig our democracy?
Kayla, our democracy is young. It's still evolving. We're still learning. The American democracy is over 200 years. Ours is just over 2 decades. Kayla, we don't have to always copy and paste verbatim. We're people that we pride ourselves with culture, with traditional norms. We need to also innovate and bring what truly works for us and what reflects as a people to us. And that's why we have lawmakers from our constituents. They're not foreigners. Because when you make laws, you're making laws for your people. So Kayla, I say our democracy must reflect what we believe is the Nigerian democracy or the African democracy.
Such as?
Where the rule of law would take precedent, where we would have fairness and equity, where the rights of people would be guaranteed, where women would not be told what their roles are. Rather, they would be allowed to play their roles the way they deem fit, because women are natural leaders. The truth is, democracy itself is not working in the region. And I can cite example. How many West African countries democratically elected have been toppled? At a point, it was like a wave.
Like West Africans or like Africa was saying something that we were not listening to.
You understand? People will argue that they were interference. But today, look at China. China is not a democratic country. Yes, we can also argue around human rights violation and whatnot. But I think we need to sit down and define our own democracy, where rights, freedom of expression are guaranteed, where our norms and culture is not put in the bin, where behavioral change and insight inform what we do, so that we have strong values, we have strong principles, so that people do not circumvent. So Kayla, I think we need an honest conversation, national, but it must be led by the president. See, I always say, yeah, it has to be led by because he has the constitutional right and mandate and the will of the people to take Nigeria to greater heights. So we must sit down and talk to people that on a good day, they don't even like themselves, let alone talk to themselves. But it must be an honest conversation.
This conversation, is it like like a national conference? Kind of like the one we had under former
Kayla,
President
what I expect is for the president to go to the different region and engage and speak to critical stakeholders from traditional institution, religious institution, civil society, women group, youth group. Speak to them at their own comfort, not in your comfort. Let's not bring people into a very fancy room and give them job description, timelines to come up with a position. No, he needs to go to terrains that people don't even like him, regions and places where they don't want to see him. You need to have those conversations. You need to make people feel very important. We need to build bridges, and people need to recover. A lot of people are still aggrieved. A lot of people are still nursing wounds. And I'm not even talking about 2023 general election. I'm talking about the Civil War. A lot of people are shying away from real and hard conversation. And if people don't have this conversation, that's why people are exploding.
So it just, whenever people talk about the trauma of Nigerians, they always go back to talk about the war. There's a lot that's happened.
Oh,
the military regime. There were so many people whose families died during the military era.
Or got missing and have never been found. Yes.
We've had trauma from different kinds of things. And none of these things have really been addressed.
I agree. So, but he must start from somewhere. And he cannot start this in his comfort. He must reach out. And you see, he's a fine politician. Give it to him. He's a smart, fine. In his class, he's the only one who is still standing. So he should use that momentum and reach out. And so that we can start recovering. People can start nursing their wound and recover. And that's what would now, because see, our biggest asset are people. People. So we must invest in them. And in investing in them is to identify with them. You don't have to like them, but you have committed that you serve them, because the oath you took is the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and they're citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
I feel like it is time, I feel like it is time for these things to happen in Nigeria, because every thriving democracy came to a head. And I think we're heading there. What do you?
I agree.
But we could get it wrong, We could either heal or get worse.
Kayla, but we'll learn a lesson. If we don't do it, then we lose. You see, you must always take risk to make progress. Connected development was born because I took a risk 13 years ago. If not, we'll just continue to lament. So we must take that bold step. It is risky. Yes, we don't know the outcome because we're not magicians. But we must take it. But first, you must be honest about it. Because if you're not honest about it, and what is your vision? Personally, individually, what is your vision for your country? And then collectively, we can then have a vision that we look up to. And then, yes, Nigeria can thrive through us.
Finally, the youth population of our country, when the electoral process comes up, they are very targeted when it comes to elections. And I think with the 2023 general elections, that was a massive youth movement in my view, because I had never seen that many. We had been complaining for so many years that young people are busy wasting their time on things that are not important. But to see them try to get involved in the electoral process, and many of them felt disappointed after those elections. How do we get young people, as disappointed as they may feel, or as alone as they may feel in the world, with things getting harder and harder? How do we get them to want to be a part of this process and make their country, better for themselves and for their children?
Kayla, another conversation we don't want to talk about is the aftermath of the NSAS, or what happened during NSAS. And if you look at the trend, the engagement and involvement of young people in the 2023 was because of the aftermath of NSAS, where young people now understand that truly they must engage, they must participate in the electoral process and inform who becomes their leaders. Because what happened at that time was as if their leaders turned a blind eye. And I'm not only talking about their political leaders. It was just as if they were left on their own and no one spoke or protected them and their rights and their civic responsibility. And also, Kayla, and to not to sound as if I'm not fair to young people. I'm a young person, but I'm not a youth. Because again, the African Youth Charter say 18 to 35. I'm above 35. I'm not a youth, and I don't like it when I'm being called a youth. But we have the highest population of youth, and I'm a young person in that demography. But it's just as if that a lot of young people do not have political knowledge and history. We don't have to always get emotional and sentimental. Your candidate, you supported a candidate, not everybody would win. One person would emerge a winner. So was it about your country or was it about your candidate? So let's ask ourselves the truth. And as young people, because I see a lot of young people have conversation, and I just look at them that they're naive. If it's truly about your country, then you now focus on ensuring that your country succeed through her political leaders. If it's about your candidate, then you continue to be emotional. And you see, in politics, let's remove emotion. This is politics. Kayla, my first degree is in politics, and I majored in politics. Kayla, there's no sentiment, there's no emotion in politics. Yes, we want fairness, we want fair hearing, but it's always about the majority. Yes, the minority will have their say, but the majority will have their way. So that's why it's important that as young people who have the demography, if you look at a lot of messaging during the campaign, it's about relating to young people. The politicians are now coming up with smart ways, using marketers to bring messages that resonate with young people. But I think our young people do not have political or politics education. And maybe we need to start teaching political education in school, because it actually determines everything. Because politics, life itself starts with politics. So not to be unfair to them, because I'm also part of the demography as a young person, but we need more political knowledge. to inform how we do things and not be sentimental and with so much emotions.
Are you going to go into politics?
I told you, we're all politicians.
Are you going to go into politics, Hamzat?
Kayla, I'm very happy as a civil society leader. I've spent over 18 years of my life in this sector. I think I will be happier going to school. You know, I just finished a course in NIPS, and I really enjoyed being in the academic space. Maybe I need to go back and spend more time, but never say never.
Never say never. I want to thank you, Hamzat, for being with us on Political Paradigm, and good luck with all the work you have ahead of you.
Oh, thank you, Kayla. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you.
We have been speaking with Mr. Hamzat Lawal, founder, Connected Development, activist, election observer, and accountability advocate. That's Political Paradigm this week. Remember, you can catch episodes of the program on YouTube via channelstv.com and keep the conversation going. Thank you for watching. I am Kayla Magwa. See you next time.